And we are live. I'll go ahead and kick us off for the City Council meeting for September 19th. Councilmember Mazzoni said he'd be running a few minutes late as he got caught up at work. I haven't heard from Councilmember Saunders. So with that, we will move on to invocation and pledge of allegiance, which will be led by Councilmember Gardner.
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day that you've blessed us with, Lord, and we're thankful that we can be here tonight to conduct the city's business, God. We just ask for wisdom over all the things that we do and the things that we say, Lord, that we will treat others with respect in all that we do, Father, and that we may constantly look to you for guidance and decisions that we make. Thank you so much for all those that serve our city each and every day, and we just ask for a measure of safety on all those that work to protect our city. And we're thankful that we get to live in such a beautiful community as this, Lord. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Gardner. The next item of business is the approval of the September 6th regular City Council meeting minutes. You all have the copy of that in your council packet. If there's no discussion, I'd entertain a motion to adopt those minutes.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. We have two public comment cards. They are both on an agenda item, so we will address those at that time. Next up is the financial statement review from Liz. Come on down.
Good evening. Thank you all for your patience as we worked to get these reports to you today instead of last week. Hopefully you had a couple minutes to look over them, but I'll talk through a little bit of it and then answer questions as I usually do. So we will start off looking at our general fund revenues. Our county millage tax current year to date is $124,000 ahead of budget year to date, $9,000 less than the prior year. We all know the timing of receipts and when people make payments. I expect that over the next month or two that year-to-date ahead of budget will drop down, and then it'll kick back up again October, November, when those payments all come in and come due. Whoops, I didn't mean to move the screen there. Our franchise fees currently are $83,000 ahead of budget year-to-date, $141,000 more than the previous year. Our state turnback funds are $7,000 ahead of budget year-to-date, $61,000 more than the previous year. County sales tax, $314,000 ahead of budget year-to-date and $360,000 more than the previous year. City sales tax is $71,000 ahead of budget year-to-date, $90,000 more than the previous year. Police Department current year-to-date revenue is $113,000 ahead of budget year-to-date, $146,000 more than the prior year. And again, those lot fee funds we got in July were $20,000 more than the annual budget. So they're looking pretty good there. Fire Department current year-to-date is $235,000 ahead of budget year-to-date and $125,000 more than the previous year. Their turnback funds were $16,000 more than the annual budget. And I didn't put a note in here, but there's also $71,000 of insurance proceeds for an insurance claim in there that's part of that $235,000 ahead of budget. So, because that was unplanned for. Animal Services. Current year-to-date, $3,000 ahead of budget year-to-date and $9,000 more than the previous year. Parks and Recreation, current year-to-date is $45,000 ahead of budget and $16,000 more than the previous year. Senior Wellness is $38,000 ahead of budget and $57,000 more than the previous year. All other revenues are ahead of budget year-to-date and ahead of the prior year, other than we've talked about that miscellaneous income line because of the transfer last year. Where we transferred money in from the capital improvement fund for the fire truck purchase. So overall, revenues for the year are $1.3 million ahead of budget year to date and $512,000 more than the prior year. Expenditures in most departments remain below budget year to date, other than that citywide services, which we've talked about pretty much since the beginning of the year, we had some subscriptions and things like that we pay at the very beginning of the year, and it just takes a while for it to catch up to a budget year to date. At the end of August, the general fund balance is $4.5 million over the required minimum balance. The current year revenues are $221,000 more than the current expenses. And then that unappropriated balance in the general fund related to last year's ARPA funds is still sitting at $2.6 million. Sorry, I didn't change the screen for the expenses part. Looking at the street fund, the county millage is $37,000 ahead of budget year to date, $2,000 less than the prior year. The state turnback funds current year to date is $260,000 under budget year to date and $83,000 more than the prior year. And so I did some digging into this one. These turnback funds include proceeds from the state highway half-cent sales tax and the wholesale fuel tax. The municipal league sends us estimates per capita of what they anticipate these revenues are going to be each year, and that's where our budget was based on. I took a look at the projected estimates they just sent us for 2023, and they have backed down on those estimates for both 2022 and 2023. So kind of making sense that we're not seeing that line item hit quite where we planned for it to. I do, in looking at what the receipts have been and what we kind of have gotten in the past years towards the last couple months, I do think we will probably end this particular revenue line about $400,000 under budget for the year. If you take a look down, though, at the expenditures, we're currently $678,000 under budget for expenses. So unless there's some major change in spending in the street fund, and that doesn't include the capital for the paving projects and things like that. I'm looking just at operating expenses. I anticipate we'll be okay making up that $400,000 in just unspent budgeted expenses there. So the street aid program, though, the other revenue line is $42,000 ahead of budget and $38,000 more than the previous year. And as I said, both departments in the street fund are under budget, $678,000. The current available street fund balance at the end of August is $5.2 million. And then taking a look at our sanitation fund, current year to date is $1,000 ahead of budget year to date, $8,000 more than the previous year. And their operating expenses are $31,000 under budget year to date, $76,000 more than the previous year, and the personnel expenses are $201,000 under budget year to date, $39,000 more than the previous year. The current sanitation fund balance at the end of August is sitting at $1.8 million. No changes in our other funds in the police and fire fund. The revenues received so far are $57,000 ahead of budget year to date and $209,000 more than the previous year, which tracks right along with all of our other sales tax revenues. And we haven't had any changes in the FEMA grant fund at this point in time, so I just didn't put it on there. And then just a little update. Obviously, you guys got a little glimpse into how the last couple of weeks have going to been with the memo that we included with the packet. We did go live on our new financial management system on August 22nd. I have to take a moment and thank all of the city staff that have worked so hard to learn new processes, learn a new system. It's throughout every department because we decentralized a lot of the finance functions in order to help put information in the hands of the departments. And so they've all had to learn new stuff as well as the finance department staff. And they've done a great job with it, and I'm really, really grateful to all of the departments' work in that area. We're still working on building reports and implementing our bank reconciliation module. So you'll see a note on these financials. These have not been reconciled yet. We're working this week on getting that module implemented. So they'll be reconciled within a week or so. And then by the time you see September's reports, those will be reconciled. So we're not going to get behind again. I want to make that very clear. And then later this fall, as we talked about, we'll be working on implementing that fixed asset module and then also some additional reporting capabilities once it's all kind of set up and flowing together. Because of all that, 2020 ACFR, I haven't had time to finish the last of the report on it. I'm really hoping to get that done in the next week or so and get that to the auditors. And then 21, most of the on-site work is complete, and it'll just be finishing the report, which we can't really start until 20's report is finished. So that's where we're at.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions for Ms. Mathis? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the financial report.
So moved. Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes. Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to have all ordinances and resolutions read by title only.
So moved. Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes. Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. With that, we'll move on to unfinished business. The first item of unfinished business is the third reading of ordinance 1071, amending the Maumelle Land Use Plan. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1071, an ordinance amending the Maumelle Land Use Plan and map and for other purposes.
Is there any discussion on ordinance 1071? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 1071. Councilmember Mosley?
Yes, sir. I will probably be voting no tonight on this. I feel like we ought to leave this as industrial. And I'm not that comfortable with the grading that's going to be taking place there. So I'll be a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Motion to approve ordinance 1071.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1071. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Holt,
No.
Councilmember Shin,
Yes.
Councilmember Tierney,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams, Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosley,
No.
That is, by my count, a 4-4. I'll go ahead and elect to vote yes on this. Motion passes. We'll move on to ordinance 1072. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1072, an ordinance amending the Maumelle zoning map and for other purposes.
This is the corresponding zoning map for the prior ordinance. Is there any discussion on this? Councilmember Holt?
Well, Mr. Mayor, since I voted no on the original one, this 72 builds on the first one, so I really have it doesn't make sense to vote for, I can't vote on one without voting on the other, so I'll have to vote no. I have no choice.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mosley?
I'll be voting no for the same reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any additional discussion on ordinance 1072? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 1072.
So moved. Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any additional discussion on ordinance 1072? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mosley,
No.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams, Councilmember Tierney,
Yes.
Councilmember Shin,
Yes.
Councilmember Holt.
No.
I elect to vote affirmative. Ordinance 1072 passes. Moving on to the next item of business, that is the second reading of ordinance 1073, amending the Maumelle Land Use Plan. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1073, an ordinance amending the Maumelle Land Use Plan and map and for other purposes.
Is there any discussion on ordinance 1073? Councilmember Mosley?
Again, I still have some concerns about this as far as adding residential to Maumelle in an area that we don't know what the traffic is going to be like and whether we can absorb that traffic on the north entrance going into I-40 and all that. We haven't had a traffic study. Perhaps Mr. Grummer, if he's here tonight, he could shed a light on that. I would also like to take the engineering firm's offer to take a tour of that. Next Monday would be best for me if that would work for you guys, and just get the lay of the land here before I make up my mind completely.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Shin?
Well, I travel through that area twice a day. That's the most functional traffic light we have as far as traffic flow. I'll get into that in the comments later. There's new neighborhoods being built over there anyway. Traffic is going to come whether it's in the county or if it's in our city. So that's not going to change. But some really nice homes going up across in the county.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to develop faster if it's in Maumelle city limits, but I would also, do we know who is wanting to develop, who's going to purchase this, and who's going to develop the thing that's going through the Planning Commission right now?
Mr. Andrews, come on down. Name and address for the record.
Roy Andrews, 3 Monarch Drive. At the moment, no, we don't know who would ultimately build that out, develop the streets or the homes in that. The first part of it's just getting it approved, and then we can take the next step.
Okay, well, the thing that's going through the planning department looks pretty specific, is if somebody wants to develop that.
There are a couple of companies that are looking at that to take it down, but we don't have a contract on it yet as to which one's going to purchase that.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
And to answer your previous, we'll be happy to take you over there. We'll set
Okay.
up a time.
All right, thank you.
Any additional discussion on ordinance 1073? If not, it'll be on third reading at the next city council meeting. Next item of business is ordinance 1074, amending the Maumelle zoning map. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1074, an ordinance amending the Maumelle zoning map and for other purposes.
This is the zoning change that accompanies the prior ordinance. Is there any discussion on ordinance 1074? Seeing none, it'll be on third reading at the next city council meeting. With that, we will move on to the last item of unfinished business, the second reading of ordinance 1075, amendment to the Maumelle City Code. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1075, an ordinance amending Section 94-101 of the Maumelle City Code to require site plan review for building permits to commercial zoning districts and for other purposes.
Any discussion on ordinance 1075? Seeing none, it'll be on third reading at the next city council meeting. That concludes unfinished business. We'll move on to new business. The first item of new business is the first reading of ordinance 1076, amending chapter 10 of the Maumelle City Code. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1076, an ordinance amending Chapter 10 of the Maumelle City Code to reinstate the ban on certain breeds of dogs and for other purposes.
Thank you very much. We do have two public comment cards on this. I'll call them in the order that they were received. First up is Patrick Keck. If you could come on down and state your name and address for the record, sir, and you have 3 minutes.
Patrick Keck. I live at 6 Zircon Drive. And this issue of pit bulls is not an abstract for me. There's a house, about 10 houses down the block from me. The gentleman has 2 of these animals, and he doesn't seem to think that the leash laws apply to him. If anyone would care to take a look, I've got a picture right here of these 2 animals out in the street, no collars, coming after me. And I'm not the only one to complain about this. Other people in the neighborhood did file complaints. And yes, we are singling this breed out, but it's the same reason you don't let people have a tiger or a wolf for a pet. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The second public comment card I have is Tricia Morin. If you could please state your name and address for the record, please.
Tricia Morin, 25 Sagamore Court. Okay, let me preface this by telling you that I don't own a dog. I'm merely a citizen who loves this city and its citizens. I want safeguards in place to protect against animals who are dangerous or vicious. Before attacking a problem, an effective problem solver will first examine if there is indeed a systematic recurring problem. If the goal is 0 dog attacks, we need to either ban all dogs or, as a certain breed attacks within our city, ban those specific breeds as attacks occur. I looked at the dog attacks that have occurred since the institution of an all-animal, all-owner code of conduct and the elimination of banning a dog based on its category or breed. Of the 23 attacks that have happened since the law changed in April 2021, only 17% were committed by previously banned breeds. So what about the other 83%? It seems that if we are going to discriminate based on breed as opposed to actual behavior, all of those attacking breeds should be banned. As lawmakers, you need to determine if 17%, which is 4 out of 23 attacks, is a significant enough number that would trigger a law change. One solution is for Maumelle to adopt some of the safeguards that Little Rock has put into place. Looking at the 2 this afternoon, some similarities between the 2 cities' regulations are they both require pets to have a current rabies vaccination and be kept confined in a fenced area or structure. Maumelle's additional safeguards are that we require annual registration of all animals, not just dangerous breeds, a reduced registration rate for spayed or neutered animals, and Maumelle Animal Services reserves the right to inspect the premises of dangerous animals. Our city spells out what will happen to animals who are deemed dangerous or vicious. Some safeguards that Little Rock institutes that Maumelle could consider are for potentially dangerous dog breed owners to provide proof of spay-neuter and get a photo with their dog for the city to keep on file. So I tried calling, and I was looking at their website versus our animal code. I tried calling the Little Rock Animal Village to verify some safeguards and get some clarification, but the phone rang and rang. I got kicked to voicemail, and the inbox was full. By contrast, I called Maumelle Animal Services twice today to clarify a few things. My calls were answered promptly, and the Maumelle Animal Services worker was very helpful. So I'm glad that if I could get someone on the line, so if I ever have an incident, I can get some help. Anyway, that's a side note. In summary, as long as we have dogs in our city, there will be attacks. In our mission to minimize dog attacks, we need to evaluate whether banning 17% of dog breeds that have contributed to attacks will solve the larger issue. I feel that the recent uproar to implement a breed ban is dogmatic and an overreaction given the numbers. So, revisiting and improving safeguards is the path that our city should take. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, we'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion on ordinance 1076. Councilmember Mosley.
Yeah, I'm the sponsor of this ordinance. I promised last week that I'd bring this ordinance before the council, and what it does is reinstate the ban language that we had in the previous ordinance. I think a lot of what was in there that was changed as far as some safeguards and things is still in there. That's something we can talk about a little bit more. But I also promised that we would do all 3 readings, that I'd make a motion to do all 3 readings tonight so that we can get this settled tonight and not drag it out and like we had problems in the last 2 times we addressed this. So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to, and I've never done this before, so if I say it wrong, please correct me, but I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules and do all 3 readings this evening.
I've got a motion on the floor to suspend the rules and have all 3 readings this evening. Is there a second on that motion? If not, motion fails for lack of second.
Okay. Well, at that point then, I guess we'll have first reading tonight and we'll go ahead and discuss it. Yeah, what was changed, the city attorney may want to talk about what was changed or what may have been left intact, but I think all we did was insert the language to go ahead and ban the previous breeds that were banned. And we did a grandfather clause to where those folks that are in good standing that do own those type of dogs have 6 months to comply with this new ordinance. We've had this attack, and the attack we had here in Maumee seems to be very typical scenario for pit bulls and pit bull mixes, where a couple of dogs get out, they roam, they attack a smaller animal, and if a human gets in the way, then the human gets attacked. For whatever reason, this breed seems to be prone to do that. There's a editorialist for the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, a fellow named Mike Masterson. He's been writing in his column for the last 2 weeks about pit bull attack on his wife and his dog up in Harrison, Arkansas. Same scenario, pit bull that was a stray pit bull was being fed by some folks and it was sitting in their front yard, and it saw their little dog and attacked, and the wife tried to defend it, and she got chewed up, and same story. The little dog did survive on this one. I think a bystander was able to intervene in time. Same thing happened with my wife's in-laws a couple of years ago. A dog jumped the fence, saw a little dog jumped the dog. A granddaughter was there. She got bitten. But anyway, same deal. And there was actually on a next door site something about a couple of loose pit bulls in West Little Rock attacking cats here over the last week or so and killing a couple of cats. So anyway, I think it's in the best interest of our residents, unless there's something that the folks that wanted to lift the ban, if they see something here that's going to change this kind of thing and keep these dogs from getting loose and doing what they do, I think it's in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the community to go ahead and put this ban back on. I think the intentions by those that lifted the ban, I think they were good. I think they genuinely thought that maybe some new procedures, and they actually touted this as making Maumelle safer than it was before. But I don't think it's working. If they have some comments on that, I think they ought to give their thoughts there. At this point, I'd make a motion to go ahead. Well, I can't do that. We haven't had the reading, so I guess I'll open the floor for other comments.
Floor is open. Councilmember Gardner?
We did have the first reading, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, I agree with Councilmember Mosley that this does not need to continue past tonight. We debated it for 2.5 months previously. Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to table Ordinance 1076 indefinitely.
I've got a motion to table Ordinance 1076 indefinitely.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to table Ordinance 1076 indefinitely. Is there any discussion on that motion? Councilmember Holt?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, reason I didn't speak up and vote to do it all in one meeting, I have some research people who have done extensive numbers on this, and I was not prepared to mention it tonight. I would really like to get this over with, but it's one of those things that doesn't seem it's gonna ever go away. I may well have an amendment to offer to it, hopefully a consolidation type thing, and might work for everyone. So that's why I have not voted to close it tonight, and I don't want it to drag on, but I will vote no to table it.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I think if you guys just table this forever and go ahead and flush it without defending your ordinance that you've got in place, I think you're doing the residents a real disservice. You're basically just saying that we want to continue to appease the people that want pit bull dogs, and that is a superior priority to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of this community, because this is going to happen again. I think the residents will forgive you if you reinstate the ban, say maybe we erred, but if you double down here, I don't think you'll ever win another contested election.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Shin?
I read through 3 years' worth of incident reports. Now, that's everything from dogs running loose in the street to actual attacks. And I can honestly say, if it weren't for Ward 1 and Ward 4, we could have a 2-man crew up there and they'd be bored to death. We have similar problems in Ward 1 and Ward 4. The cause is different. Loose dogs is the problem. They get involved in attacks. In Ward 4, it's because they get out of the fence. In Ward 1, it's because they're not on a lead. And it's the majority of all of the cases. So when a dog gets attacked at the park or over in Ward 1, it's usually because the owner's there, but they're not taking responsibility to put it on a lead. In Ward 4, it's because the fences are bad and they need to be repaired. When we first passed this, I asked one of zoning, code enforcement, so I guess you guys are going to step up with enforcing the code on fences. And he looked at me and said, I don't have time to go look at everybody's fence. To which I replied, if you go down North Odom or Kingsland, I said, or just go down the trail, because I know you do it listening for air hammers, you'll find the fences that need to be repaired. Some has been taken care of. A lot of it has not in Ward 4. The fences are just like they were a year and a half ago. But, so, do I need to be the fence Nazi and go around with see-click fix and report them? Because there's this little white dog that's out on Odom North. He's reported 3 times a week being out on Facebook. We've stopped and tried to pick him up. He runs under the fence. Fence needs to be repaired. And it's been that way for a month. I mean, it's probably been that way longer, but this one dog we've seen for a month. But I can't catch him out of the yard. So we have other problems. We have problems of code enforcement, owners taking responsibility all over the city. If you take your dog to the park and it's not on a lead, you need a ticket. But that is the big problem in parts of the city, while it's the fences in another. So there's a lot of different problems to be addressed here, and it's not by breed. It's by the whole neighborhood, the whole city, the whole community.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mazzoni?
Yeah, I apologize for coming late to this. My input is, there's points on our side right now. And what I don't want, I'm kind of interested, Councilmember Holt, in your potential amendments, because, yeah, you have a good point. If we don't want to drag this on, but I don't want to just, if we just table it indefinitely to go away, then I don't want it to give the impression we're shuffling this under the rug. So, how close are you, or for amendments, or for another, if that's an appropriate question to ask?
I don't mind answering, if gentleman wishes.
Councilmember Holt?
I'll be prepared at the next meeting. I quite honestly didn't have time, didn't get to look at this agenda until late, and I had already planned to tried to get the other one submitted in its place, but, not knowing that it was gonna happen, but it's worth hearing, and I believe that we need, I'm like you, I don't want to drag this on, but it's not gonna go away until we come together and we find some way. Let me do this, endure this with me, and I'll do my best to make it something that, we can come to a conclusion on and solve it for the city and the residents. I'll be ready at the next meeting.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Tierney?
Yeah, one thing I've always felt abundantly confident about is that every person I've served with on this council, both past and present, has always held the safety of our community to be their highest priority. It's important, every one of us, that we get this right. Having been attacked by a dog as a child, it's also a subject I've watched my entire life. I remember times when the demon dogs that need to be purged were Rottweilers. Then there were Dachshunds. Now it's Pit Bulls. One dog breed that has never been on that list, though, was the breed that attacked me, a Shepherd. Shepherds are employed by the police and military because they can be trained to be vicious. Looking over the recent reports of animal services over the last 2 years, Shepherds are the #1 culprit for attacks in Maumelle, but their breed isn't included on the proposals list. Why is that? Well, it's because no lobbying groups targeting them, or is it because that it's been recognized that when Shepherds become vicious, it's a case of nurture over nature. It's the result of training by their owners. I can't support a bill that simply slaps focuses on what an animal looks like and ignores the core problems of bad owners. The vast majority of residents, to me, have echoed that sentiment. But what I could support would be a revision with these changes, removing the myopic and narrow focus that just targets what a certain breeds look like, and just concentrates on any animal that has been identified as dangerous to be spayed and neutered. In talking to the city attorney, I believe she's made a comment about how that often could be a solution to some of the attacks that we've had in the past. Is that something anybody is interested in considering, just removing the whole thing about band specific and just say, hey, if animal control identifies this animal as being vicious, they need to be spayed and neutered? That's been mentioned kind of in some of the talks other people have said during this. Does anybody consider that to be a good idea? City Attorney, do you have any comment?
One common problem with dogs that roam of all breeds is that they are not spayed and neutered. That's nature. That's what's going to happen, especially with male dogs that are looking for companionship. So I as far as breed specifically, Little Rock does require that all pit bull dogs be spayed and neutered. I would not have a problem with that at all. Definitely, any dog that's been designated as dangerous or vicious, I think that's a good revision as well.
Councilmember Gardner?
Thank you, Mayor. In reference to tabling this, this is only specifically for this ordinance. If anybody wanted to propose a different one with different language, that's completely fine. Mine is just for this ordinance, which includes the banned breeds. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilmember Shin?
Question for Madam City Attorney. Do we have something in place where if you have a repeat offender, like I noticed in going through all those reports, there was one household that had over 8 sites from the animal control.
For like a dog being out.
Dogs being out, a breeder without a license. Apparently there's one street over in my ward that really has a lot of problems. And this one lady's name just keeps coming up. Is there not something we can do to
So
end
if
that
somebody
problem, so to
has
speak?
multiple violations, a lot of times they're considered together if they're from the same date.
This was over about probably 2 months.
And it may depend, so typically, and on a lot of things, they will warn before they issue a summons or a citation. Especially, we're thinking, and in this instance, it really was devastating for a dog to be at large. But there are also instances when you have a repairman who leaves the gate open, you have, a dog that just shoots out the front door and they can't quite get it back in. Those things do happen. So, and I think Animal Services tries to be somewhat understanding that there are some of those instances, but when it becomes a repeated problem, they do step up enforcement. And so we do have in our schedule as well, first offense, second offense, third offense for the same thing. Your fine levels do go up. Looking at what our fine levels are for some of these offenses, that might be something that we would want to consider too, because they're just not, over limit of pets, first offense is $25 to $75. I mean, it's probably been that way for 20 years, and $25 is not what $25 was 20 years ago. So I do think that's something that's also worth looking at as far as the schedule overall.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, it sounds like about 3 council members at least are interested in some kind of modifications or something here. What I would suggest is maybe just leaving my ordinance lie here, and then maybe the 3 that had some ideas about some changes or ordinances of your own, maybe have a workshop between now and the next meeting, and maybe can put forth some kind of a proposal or something like that. But those of you that want the ban lifted, you really need to show some good faith here, I think, to the residents that they're going to be protected, because it's not working. So anyway, that's what I propose.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is a motion to table ordinance 1076 indefinitely. Any additional discussion? Sure. Roll call vote on the motion again is to table ordinance 1076 indefinitely.
Councilmember, Mosley,
No.
Councilmember Mazzoni,
Originally, as a practice, I don't like tabling something like this indefinitely. Were it not for specific provisions, I would have been no, but I don't want this to die, so I'm going to say yes to this, and either way, we'll put something else out. So, long-winded, yes.
Councilmember Gartner,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes, for the same reason, Mr. Mazzoni.
Councilmember Tierney,
Yes.
Councilmember Shin,
Yes.
Councilmember Holt,
No.
Motion passes and ordinance 1076 is tabled indefinitely. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the first reading of ordinance 1077, providing for the issuance and sale of bonds. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that very short title.
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of an industrial development revenue bond under the authority of Act Number 9 of 1960 as amended for the purpose of securing and developing industry within the city, authorizing the execution and delivery of a bond purchase agreement, providing for the sale of the bond, authorizing the execution and delivery of a trust indenture securing the bond, authorizing the execution and delivery of a lease agreement between the city as a leaser and Tractor Supply Company as a lessee, authorizing the execution and delivery of an agreement for payments in lieu of taxes, authorizing the execution and delivery of other documents relating to the issuance of bond and prescribing other matters related thereto.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wilburn, would you like to come down and let us know what we're looking at?
Well, sure. First, the one thing I want to point out, we need to have the public hearing. It's called.
Okay, we'll go ahead and
Just
open the public
middle here,
hearing.
But I can do the same kind of introduction for that. You may remember, I'm Gordon Wilburn with the Q-Tech Rock Law Firm. I was here last November when you adopted a resolution of intent to assist Tractor Supply Company, although you didn't know who it was yet, it hadn't been announced, but by description of the project in the issuance of this industrial development revenue bond to finance the facility now under construction, up to $190 million in principal amount. the bond will be owned by a subsidiary of the company, and really the sole purpose for doing this is to get the 65% property tax abatement authorized under Arkansas law. I'm happy to answer any questions, but the hearing just needs to be held before the ordinance is considered.
All right, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:48. If there's anyone in the public that would like to make a comment on this, please feel free to come on forward. Open the floor to city council member comments. This is a pretty not rare. We've used something similar in the past for Kimberly Clark. Mr. Wilburn, you've been here before on different issues as well. Councilmember Mosley?
I ask this question every time we do this. I get the same answer, and hopefully I will again tonight.
I know what the question is.
Okay, what do you think it is?
No liability on the city whatsoever. The sole security for the bond is the payments by the company under the lease agreement. So there's no tax support or anything like that.
Okay, no risk to the residents
Correct.
either. All right, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There is a request to have all three readings this evening and then enact an emergency clause. Mr. Wilburn, could you briefly explain why that is?
Well, we do not have an emergency clause, so
Okay.
remove that. But yeah, it's not here on my draft anyway. So
I added it if you want.
oh, you added it? Not necessary, because we are not going to close this issue. The maximum length of an Act 9 bond is 30 years. So we will probably not close until, right after December 1. So, I mean, we could come back for another reading. I really just to get it wrapped up. I don't know if anybody has any other questions, but just really to get it wrapped up in one meeting if there are no outstanding issues.
Thank you. Councilmember Tierney?
Yeah, I did have one question on the form of investor letter, the Exhibit A. On item 1, it says, and I'm going to kind of cut out some of the legal language
Sure.
in here, just to kind of make it into a cohesive sentence, but it says, will not receive any information, or, the people providing the bond will not receive any information with respect to the use of the proceeds or provisions for the payment. I mean, it almost makes it sound like you could get the money and then like, okay, we're going to use this on another project, and since, the money being used is going to have an effect on the tax proceeds, that I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure, it's really, because it's a related entity that's going to own the bonds, it's really just for a subsequent transfer, that if there was a subsequent transfer to another party, they would have to say, the city's not telling us anything, company, we're taking this bond, we're solely responsible for making the investment decision. Initially, of course, they'll know everything about it because it will be just an LLC created by the company to own the bond, just a wholly owned subsidiary. But it's really to make the further transfer of the bond pretty difficult. There will be no reason really to ever transfer it again. It's like I said, it's just for the property tax abatement. They're not really getting investment proceeds to build a facility.
So this is something that will be used here in Maumelle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional council member comments? Councilmember Gardner?
Are we still in the public hearing, or have we closed that? Do we need to be in the public hearing still?
It could be in the discussion of the ordinance either way, but I guess
Okay.
you do need to close the hearing before you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. These are pretty cut and dry. We've done these with other corporations before, so I will make a motion to suspend the rules and have all three readings of ordinance 1077 tonight.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion on the motion to have the second and third readings of ordinance 1077 this evening? If not, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Madam City Clerk?
I'll go as quickly as I can. Being enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1077, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of Industrial Development Revenue Bond under the authority of Act Number 9 of 1960, as amended for the purpose of securing and developing industry within the city, authorizing the execution and delivery of a bond purchase agreement, providing for the sale of the bond, authorizing the execution and delivery of a trust indenture, securing the bond, authorizing the execution and delivery of a lease agreement between the city as a lessor and the Tractor Supply Company as a lessee, authorizing the execution and delivery of an agreement for payments in lieu of taxes, authorizing the execution and delivery of other documents related to the issuance of the bond and prescribing other matters related thereto. Third reading.
Please.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1077, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of industrial development revenue bond under the authority of Act Number 9 of 1960, as amended for the purpose of securing and developing industry within the city, authorizing the execution and delivery of a bond purchase agreement, providing for the sale of the bond, authorizing the execution and delivery of a trust indenture, securing the bond, authorizing the execution and delivery of a lease agreement between the city as a lessor and the execution and Tractor Supply Company as a lessee, authorizing the execution and delivery of an agreement for the payments in lieu of taxes, authorizing the execution and delivery of other documents relating to the issuance of the bond and prescribing other matters relating thereto.
Thank you very much. With that, if there's no further discussion on ordinance 1077, I'd entertain a motion to adopt it. I've got a motion. Did I hear a second? Second. I've got a motion and a second. Madam City Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazzoni?
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
Councilmember Williams? Councilmember Tierney?
Yes.
Councilmember Shin? Councilmember Holt?
Motion passes. And ordinance 1077 is adopted. Thank you. That concludes new business. With that, we'll move on to mayor's comments. Just really quickly, the city has Keep My Maumelle Beautiful project going on. It'll be from Thursday, October 20th through Sunday, October 23rd. You can check out our social media pages or the website. We're always looking for folks to help get out there and clean up Maumelle. So please register with us, and you or your organization can get various supplies to help with that, as well as areas that we've identified could use a little bit of TLC. With that, we'll move on to council member comments. Councilmember Shin.
I would like to, I brought this up in the past, and something was attempted with it, but it apparently didn't stick. We have a lot of problems, and this last week I've had a lot of complaints about left turn lanes at our traffic lights, all over, all up and down the boulevard. The other day, I came in through 100 instead of going around like I normally do, and the traffic was backed up to turn left almost to Regents Bank. We need to change the cycle or something. We've got to move that traffic, or we're going to have even more problems. I know that the state's promising to come and do improvements, but is there not something we can do in the meantime?
So if you're talking about Odom, the Maumelle Boulevard heading north, turning left onto Odom South, that light went out, that traffic signal went out over the weekend. We got a new controller in it on Monday. That controller wasn't operating correctly. I believe Councilmember Gardner called and notified us that it was out at about 3 o'clock or so on Wednesday, and we had it reprogrammed and timed to be able to handle that turn. So that specific light should be back and functioning. With regards to the rest of the traffic signals, we're having a lot of difficulty with the adaptive system. We had a meeting today. Mike Hogan, Jay was there with the North Little Rock traffic engineers. North Little Rock is no longer on the adaptive system. They've pulled off of the adaptive system. The traffic signal on the north end of town is also off. So out where the interchange is, the state has requested that be pulled off the adaptive system. I believe right now that light at Odom South and the Boulevard is also off the adaptive system after the controller went out. We haven't resynced it. And I think another one of our lights is off the adaptive system. So we're trying to figure out what to do with that. We think that we can utilize some of the hardware and technology that is there currently to remove it from the adaptive system, but still use some of those features and technologies. That was one of the things we discussed today. So we are actively pursuing a solution to the problem that just keeps reinventing itself over and over again.
Thank you, sir.
Next item is Councilmember Mosley.
Yeah, I'm going to return to the breed ban subject a little bit here. I just do the five people that lifted this ban. I just do not understand your viewpoint at all. I just don't get it. I certainly don't. This attack that we had here about 3 weeks ago, that could have been a small kid, and that's still something that we could have here. I don't know what it takes to get people to do this. This is an unnecessary risk of the folks here in Maumelle. If we had done the referendum back there, if you all had voted to do that, this issue would be settled once and for all, because the residents would have indicated their choice on this matter. But I think 70%, 80% of the residents don't really want these dangerous dogs roaming the neighborhood. They're going to get out, as Mr. Shin said. We can't provide perfect cages and fences and things like that. So what you do is you eliminate the dangerous animal. But anyway, what I would do is I would encourage Mr. Holt to bring something forward. I think something definitely needs to be done of some kind here to make it safer. So my kudos for him trying, and I wish him well. Hope he comes up with something good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Tierney.
Last session you were talking about the different projects that the city council has, or the city has for the grant money that we have, and there was no mention about a city aquatic center. I was talking to you about that, and you had indicated that you had taken a look at the numbers, and maybe it seemed like they were going to be too expensive. I was wondering if you could get that information to me so I could take a look at it. I think city aquatic center is something a lot of residents would like to see, and I'd like to investigate that further.
Thank you, sir. Are you talking about a full aquatic center or a limited aquatic center at the at Center on the Lake?
At the Center on the Lake, correct.
All right. Any additional council member comments? Seeing none, City Attorney?
No comments.
Madam City Clerk?
No comments.
At this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I've got a motion. Did I hear a second? Second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.